I'm convinced Sister Wives star Robyn's jealousy of Christine was the family's undoing. For more than a decade, fans of Sister Wives have followed the Brown family's deeply complicated journey, one that started with the dream of plural harmony and slowly unraveled into estrangement, heartbreak, and ultimately, dissolution. But as the dust begins to settle from the emotional wreckage of the show's most recent seasons, one thread becomes more and more clear with each passing revelation. Robyn Brown's simmering jealousy of Christine may have been the crack in the foundation that eventually tore the entire family apart. And now, it's hard to ignore the role that jealousy played in the family's undoing, because all signs point to it being one of the deepest, most defining conflicts in the Brown household. From the very beginning, Robyn entered the family under drastically different circumstances than the other wives. Kody Brown's spiritual marriages to Mary, Yanel, and Christine were well established, built over time through years of shared experiences, struggles, and emotional negotiations. But when Robyn came in, everything changed. Her courtship with Kody was more romantic, more public, and arguably more emotionally intense than any of his prior relationships. This shift didn't just unsettle the balance, it blew it apart. And the wife who seemed most impacted by this sudden change in dynamic? Christine Brown. Christine, the third wife in the family, had long been viewed by fans as the one who embodied the spirit of plural marriage in the most traditional and devoted sense. She was nurturing, bubbly, and often the peacemaker, especially when tensions between Mary and Yanel created emotional strain. But Christine's world shifted when Robyn arrived. She felt the attention, energy, and emotional connection between Kody and Robyn growing in real time, and that changed the way she saw her own marriage. Suddenly, Christine was not just competing for time with a husband she already shared with two other women, she was now fighting for emotional intimacy with a woman who seemed to leapfrog the entire marital hierarchy. Robyn often insisted that she never intended to disrupt the family's dynamics. In interviews, she portrayed herself as eager to bond with the other wives, willing to adapt to the principles of plural marriage, and open to sharing Kody. But behind the scenes, things looked starkly different. There were subtle microaggressions, moments of passive-aggressive tension, and an unmistakable vibe that Robyn considered herself separate from and in many ways superior to the other wives. And no one seemed to feel the sting of that more than Christine. Christine's emotional withdrawal from the marriage began slowly. She started questioning her worth, her role, and ultimately her relationship with Kody. Fans watched as Christine expressed her frustrations and heartaches season after season, most of them involving Kody's diminishing interest in her, and his overwhelming attachment to Robyn. What added insult to injury was how Kody, time and again, seemed to prioritize Robyn's comfort over the needs and feelings of his other wives. That was never clearer than during the early days of the pandemic, when Kody's strict visiting schedule, designed largely around Robyn's household, alienated the rest of the family. Christine, already at her wits' end, began to see just how lopsided their relationships had become. Robyn's jealousy of Christine didn't always come in the form of obvious outbursts or harsh words. Instead, it manifested in control, through passive manipulation, through subtle comments made to Kody behind closed doors, and through emotional boundaries that distanced her from the other wives while drawing Kody deeper into her orbit. Christine was seen as a threat not just because of her long-standing relationship with Kody, but because she represented something Robyn never truly had with him: history, tradition, and a genuine sense of sisterhood. The breaking point for Christine came when she realized that the intimacy she once shared with Kody had been replaced with duty and resentment. She wanted more than just a spiritual connection. She wanted romance, respect, and emotional safety. And she knew she would never get that while Robyn remained the gravitational center of Kody's world. When Christine finally decided to leave, she didn't just walk away from Kody, she walked away from a dynamic that had long treated her as disposable. In the aftermath of Christine's departure, Robyn publicly mourned the collapse of the family. She gave teary-eyed interviews, claimed she never wanted to be the only wife left standing, and insisted that she had always supported plural marriage. But viewers were quick to notice a dissonance between her words and her actions. Robyn may have cried for the cameras, but many believe those tears weren't for the family's unity, they were for the loss of the image she had worked so hard to maintain. Robyn liked being seen as the peacekeeper, the misunderstood outsider, the devoted wife. But in reality, her presence had created an imbalance from the very start. Robyn's jealousy of Christine didn't just create emotional strain, it exposed the fragile nature of Kody's leadership. Instead of balancing his relationships with fairness and empathy, Kody increasingly catered to Robyn's needs, validating her insecurities and ignoring the growing discontent among his other wives. Christine saw it. Yanel felt it. Even Mary, long accustomed to Kody's coldness, couldn't deny it. The cracks that formed in the wake of Robyn's integration into the family only deepened over time, eventually splitting the Browns into irreparable factions. What makes this story so heartbreaking is that it didn't have to end this way. Christine wasn't opposed to Robyn joining the family, at least not at first. In fact, she tried to welcome her, tried to bond with her. But Robyn's need for special treatment, her emotional possessiveness of Kody, and her subtle undermining of the other wives made trust impossible. And the more Kody indulged Robyn, the more he alienated the rest of his family. Christine's decision to leave wasn't selfish, it was survival. In recent seasons, we've seen a Christine who glows with freedom, peace, and self-love. She stepped into her own life outside the shadow of Robyn's influence, and it's clear that the distance has helped her heal. Fans have rallied around her, seeing her not as a quitter, but as a woman who finally recognized her worth. Her transformation has made one thing undeniable: the weight of Robyn's jealousy and Kody's favoritism wasn't just damaging, it was soul-crushing. As for Robyn, her storyline has taken a darker turn. Once portrayed as the shy and sweet fourth wife trying to fit in, she is now widely viewed as the catalyst for the family's collapse. Her tears no longer move the audience, instead, they raise eyebrows. Her claims of wanting unity ring hollow when weighed against her actions. And her position as the last remaining wife hasn't earned her admiration, it's earned her resentment. The fanbase no longer sees her as a misunderstood newcomer. They see her as the woman who, through a mix of insecurity and control, helped destroy a family built on decades of shared sacrifice. I get why Kody pushed Yanel to buy Christine's house on Sister Wives, and it's shady. The unraveling of the Brown family has been nothing short of riveting, and while fans have grown accustomed to seeing tension bubble beneath the surface of Kody Brown's plural marriage, one particular moment stands out as a shining example of manipulation masked as strategy. In the wake of Christine's departure from the family, a move that sent shockwaves through the entire Sister Wives audience, Kody's behavior shifted from confused husband to strategic operator. One of the clearest indications of this shift came when he repeatedly pushed Yanel to buy Christine's house. At first glance, it may have seemed like a reasonable suggestion, a logical choice in the wake of a real estate shuffle. But as the layers peeled back, it became glaringly obvious that Kody's motivations weren't rooted in practicality, love, or even family unity. They were drenched in control, ego, and a desperate attempt to maintain his dwindling power over a family that was slipping through his fingers. And honestly, it was shady as hell. Christine's decision to leave Kody wasn't just a personal choice, it was a bold statement of self-worth in a relationship where she had long been neglected. She had endured years of emotional neglect, feeling like a third-tier partner while Robyn soaked up Kody's attention and time. For Christine, stepping away from the family and claiming her independence was a radical act, one that disrupted Kody's carefully maintained house of cards. But in leaving, Christine also created a vacuum. She didn't just walk away emotionally, she sold her home, the physical symbol of her time and place within the family. And it was that property that suddenly became a chess piece in Kody's broader game of influence. Enter Yanel. Known for her calm demeanor, independent streak, and practical mindset, Yanel had always seemed like the wife most capable of navigating Kody's idiosyncrasies without losing herself. But as Christine exited, Yanel became the new focus of Kody's projections and manipulations. He began pressuring her to purchase Christine's house, framing it as a good financial move, a smart way to keep the family close, and a necessary step for long-term stability. But beneath that sales pitch was something much darker, an attempt to erase Christine's presence, to reassign her territory, and to reassert control over the narrative. On the surface, it seemed innocent enough. Kody claimed that the house was ideal, it was close to the rest of the family, already suited for plural living, and available at a decent price. But what he failed to acknowledge was the emotional burden he was asking Yanel to carry. Buying Christine's house would have been, in many ways, an acceptance of Christine's absence and an endorsement of the choices that led her to leave. More than that, it would have placed Yanel quite literally in Christine's shadow, occupying the space of a woman who had just made the courageous decision to walk away from a deeply dysfunctional marriage. For Kody, that didn't seem to matter. What mattered was control. The emotional manipulation didn't stop with simple encouragement. Kody began to apply pressure in the way only he knows how, through subtle guilt-tripping, fear-based what-ifs, and conditional affection. He painted the picture of an uncertain future if Yanel didn't comply. He warned her about the challenges of securing another home, raised doubts about her long-term plan to build on Coyote Pass, and dangled the illusion of familial closeness as bait. It wasn't about what Yanel wanted. It was about what Kody needed. And what he needed, more than anything, was to feel like he still had control over a family that was quickly slipping away from him. What makes the situation even more twisted is how Kody tried to frame the suggestion as being for Yanel's own good. He implied that buying the house would benefit her children, give her security, and ensure her place within the family structure. But the truth is, Yanel never needed Kody's help to make decisions for herself or her children. She had always been fiercely independent, working tirelessly to support her kids and maintain a semblance of stability in the chaotic Brown household. Kody's suggestion wasn't about helping Yanel, it was about helping himself. It was about re-establishing order in a system where the women had started to see through the illusion. Yanel's hesitation to buy the house wasn't just about money or logistics. It was about principle. She knew that stepping into Christine's old space wasn't just about acquiring property, it was about stepping into a narrative that Kody was desperately trying to rewrite. It was about being used as a pawn in a game she never agreed to play. And perhaps most importantly, it was about acknowledging that Christine's absence had created a power vacuum Kody was eager to fill, even if it meant pushing Yanel into a situation that didn't align with her values or her goals. What fans saw during that time was the unraveling of Kody's mask. The affable, sometimes clueless father figure persona began to crack, revealing a man deeply unsettled by his crumbling authority. His push for Yanel to buy the house wasn't an isolated moment, it was part of a broader pattern of manipulation, one that had become more desperate and transparent as more wives began questioning his leadership. Christine was gone. Mary was emotionally distant. Yanel was the only one still tethered to the idea of family unity. And Kody knew that if he could anchor her with real estate, tie her down physically, he might be able to tie her down emotionally too. But Yanel, true to form, didn't fall for it. She resisted the pressure, kept her distance, and continued to assert her independence. In doing so, she exposed just how calculated Kody's suggestion had been. She didn't need to buy a house to prove her loyalty. She didn't need to occupy Christine's space to feel like part of the family. And she certainly didn't need Kody's approval to chart her own path. Her resistance wasn't just a personal choice, it was a statement. It was a quiet refusal to be part of Kody's illusion any longer. The fallout from the situation was telling. Kody, increasingly frustrated and confused by his wife's refusal to fall in line, began lashing out. He questioned their commitment, criticized their attitudes, and continued to cling to Robyn, the one wife who still seemed willing to play by his rules. But the more he leaned into his favoritism, the more apparent it became that the family was fractured beyond repair. The suggestion that Yanel buy Christine's house wasn't just shady, it was a symbol of everything wrong with how Kody wielded his authority. The house itself became a metaphor. It wasn't just a piece of property. It was Christine's legacy, her history, her space. And Kody wanted to erase that history by having another wife take her place, as if her departure was nothing more than a logistical inconvenience. He failed to recognize, or perhaps chose to ignore, that Christine's decision to leave was rooted in years of emotional neglect, years of feeling like she didn't matter. By trying to hand off her home like a used car, Kody revealed just how little he understood the gravity of what had occurred. He didn't see Christine's departure as a moment of reckoning. He saw it as a problem to be solved. And that's where his plan began to fall apart. I don't think the Coyote Pass property redistribution will end the Brown family drama. An even bigger battle lies ahead. When the Brown family first set their sights on the expansive land at Coyote Pass, The promise of building a new future seemed like the perfect glue to hold together an increasingly strained plural marriage. On the surface, Coyote Pass represented hope. It was their promised land, a sprawling stretch of land nestled in Flagstaff, Arizona, where the Browns could finally live close by, if not under the same roof. But over the years, the dream that was supposed to unify the family only magnified their fractures. Now, with the recent move to redistribute the Coyote Pass property, it's tempting to believe that the legal and emotional tensions might finally settle. But for those who have been paying attention, this isn't the end of the conflict. If anything, it's the prelude to an even bigger battle. The reality is that the redistribution of Coyote Pass has come far too late in the game. The relationships among Kody, Mary, Yanel, Christine, and Robyn have already unraveled. Trust has eroded, resentments have hardened, and old wounds have festered without true healing. It's difficult to believe that simply redrawing the lines on a property deed will resolve the deeply rooted emotional issues that have plagued this family for years. And as the lines are redrawn in legal terms, the emotional boundaries remain just as jagged, if not more. Coyote Pass was once symbolic of the family's future. Kody sold it to the wives as a vision: separate homes, together forever, a community where their children could grow up surrounded by siblings and mothers. But promises on paper do not always translate into reality, especially when the core relationships within the family begin to crack. Christine was the first to break from the vision, boldly walking away from the marriage and her stake in the property. Her departure was a major blow not just to the physical plan for Coyote Pass but also to the family's emotional stability. Yanel, long known as the pragmatic and grounded wife, followed with her own declaration of independence. And though Mary had been emotionally distanced for some time, her eventual detachment only deepened the chasm. With the three original wives out of the equation and Robyn standing as the last wife still aligned with Kody, the illusion of unity crumbled. In the face of this, the move to finally redistribute the land and assign new titles to the properties felt more like a legal afterthought than a solution. It's as if the family is trying to apply a logistical bandage over a wound that's been gaping open for years. The deed assignments, parcel divisions, and legal signatures might serve a practical purpose, but they do little to address the emotional fallout that remains unacknowledged. What makes this situation even more complicated is Kody's role in the Coyote Pass saga. For years, he pushed for the family to invest emotionally and financially in the land, despite the growing discord within the family. His tunnel vision on building homes there, especially a mansion that many believed would cater primarily to Robyn, only fueled suspicions and division. Christine, in particular, grew weary of Kody's apparent favoritism, and it's no surprise that her exit from the family included a decision to surrender her share of the land. But giving up the land doesn't mean giving up the pain. The emotional toll of being sidelined, ignored, or undervalued by a husband who was supposed to lead with fairness and love has left lasting scars. Yanel, who spent her own money setting up an RV and attempting to live on the property,